And welcome to Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel. This is our 9th anniversary episode, and I just want to take the time to thank everyone who has listened to the show. Even if it's just one episode over the 9 years, I really appreciate it. If you rated and reviewed the show, if you gave me a guest suggestion, I really appreciate it. I still can't believe I've gotten the amount of guests and the quality of guests on the show over the 9 years. I'm still shocked anyone has even agreed to come on. I have some really cool guests coming up over the next few weeks, and today is no different. I have the great Stephen Tobolowsky on. He's basically been in everything. He's known for his role as Ned Ryerson in Groundhog Day, Sammy Jankis in Memento. He had a memorable scene in Spaceballs, and I try to get it out of him whether or not he's going to be in the sequel. We talk about his appearance on Seinfeld in the heart attack episode, and he starred in a criminally underrated show on Comedy Central called Big Time in Hollywood, Florida. We talk about that. He also shares his nightmare experience working with Steven Seagal in The Glimmer Man. You can only imagine that. Really enjoy my conversation with Steven, and if you do, please rate and review the show. I would really appreciate it. Here's Steven. Steven, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Good to be here.
Yeah, so this is my 9th anniversary show. So, I mean, it can't be any bigger honors than being the guest on my 9th anniversary. So congratulations.
No, this is right up there. The 9th anniversary. Congratulations. I mean, most people, can't even get through a season of television.
Yeah.
Of watching television, let alone performing.
Yeah.
Doing a podcast for 9 years. Oh my God.
Yeah. The beauty about that is they can't cancel you. So you just keep
That's
going.
true.
Right?
That's true.
Keep
You
going.
are the man.
Yeah, until they shut down this whole medium. Yeah. But once again, congratulations. I really, appreciate that. So the award will be in the mail soon, I promise.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So what are you up to these days?
Oh gosh. It's strange times. It seems like everything in California is gone.
Right.
Everything you knew was gone. So I've been involved with a couple projects. I did a small movie called Watching Walter, which just won a film festival here in Los Angeles. It's a great true story about this Jewish watchmaker, which is played by me,
right,
and who had an experience in World War II. He was in the concentration camps in World War II, and he has an encounter with someone that he figured was maybe a German guard, at the time. And it's really a wonderful, breathtaking little film, and it just won some sort of award at a film festival. And I just came from Denver. I was working on a project with Corbin Burnson,
okay,
and I think that one is called Woodstockers. They may change the name, but Corbin wanted to do a story about two guys, two buddies, me and he, who went to Woodstock when we were teenagers and never left. And so you have two 70-year-old guys still getting stoned all the time in our lives. And we shot it in Woodstock, New York.
okay,
And it's been in a couple film festivals. At South by Southwest, we won the Audience Award. And at the Denver Film Festival, we just won the Audience and Project Award. I forget the name of it, but 2 awards there. What Corbin decided to do, mid-edit, was change this from a movie into a television series, which was extremely brilliant. And so they cut the show down to like 44 minutes, and it's wonderful. It's funny, it's moving, it's heartbreaking, it's terrific. So, we all have our fingers crossed that somebody, down the line in Netflix or somebody will say, let's do a few more episodes of this.
that's great. And there's so many like outlets now, so hopefully, one of them will at least pick it up. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
something. And it's, it when you see it and you see the way it affects audiences, what I was amazed at is that even the generation of people, because you look like maybe you're too young for Woodstock. Are
Yeah,
you too young for Woodstock? Yes.
I'm 51. My
Yeah.
mom went.
Yeah, your mom went. Yes. I was of that generation of like, are we going to go to Woodstock or not? And it was interesting to watch this audience of basically younger people understand the journey, understand what it was like to kind of drop out from society and try to create a society or world of your own, which is something like what the internet does now, in a way. It kind of forces you to drop out from the real world and come up with something on your own. And so I was just amazed. I was amazed at how Woodstockers really appeals to the younger people.
Right. Because there were a couple other festivals since then. I think the 25th anniversary of Woodstock, and then the shit show of the 1999 one.
Ah,
If you've seen that documentary, it is
no.
unbelievable. Oh my God.
No.
I can imagine, the one 1969 was about the music and love, where the one in 99 was just about the money. Yeah.
The thing that was interesting to me shooting this and going back to shoot this is that the first paid acting job I had was at the Forestburg Summer Theater, which is right next door to where Woodstock was, and I stayed at the theater, which is like right down the road from the motel I stayed at shooting Woodstockers.
Oh, wow.
And it hasn't changed a bit. It's exactly the same. And all these memories came back. I got paid $10 a week as an actor. That'll get you somewhere. But
Right.
to tell you the truth, I saved money on this because out in the woods doing summer theater, there's nothing you could spend your money on. So I collected that $10 a week for about 10 weeks. So I think I made a cool $100 on this show.
Yeah. You were 100 there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So when you shoot something like that hasn't had like an outlet yet to get picked up, do you kind of, I'm sure you've shot like a ton of pilots that don't get picked up, but like that's with like a particular network. When you're shooting one that just has really no outlet to get, like, what is it, nervous? Do you feel like you've kind of like wasted your time if it doesn't get picked up, or would you be so
No, the world, first of all, you're never wasting your time when you work on a project just because you are working on a project and you're getting those muscles used
Right.
again of learning lines, acting in front of a camera, all that. But another thing is that's how you make connections with people, is working on projects, whether you succeed or fail. I did a show. One of the first shows I was a regular on was Dweebs. Have you ever heard of Dweebs?
Yeah, I remember Dweebs. Yeah.
So Dweebs was the show, and we all thought it was going to go, and I guess certainly Dweebs didn't make it. But shortly after Dweebs, people came up with Big Bang Theory, which is the same show as Dweebs.
Right.
But you end up making friends with people, and those people end up liking you. For example, on Dweebs, I met a lot of people who became studio executives. And so later on in my career, you run into them again, and you have a free ticket on an audition. So it's a small community, and the more you can meet people and the more you can make a good impression on people, the luckier and the easier the way is for you in the future.
Right. And I'm sure you never want to burn a bridge because you never know when you're going to meet somebody again.
We never knew Groundhog Day was going to be successful.
Right.
Bill and I were shooting Groundhog Day, Harold Ramis. It's like, this is going to be good. It's going to be a Bill Murray movie. Andy McDowell, my God, so good. I mean, it's also good, but when the movie was released, we had no idea what it was going to be. And after a month of its release, Trevor Albert, the executive producer of the movie, called me on the phone and said, "Stephen, I think the movie's going to be a hit." And I said, "It is, Trevor? Why?" And he said, "Because there is a certain algorithm as to who goes to movies and how they go to movies. And generally what happens, a movie opens, people who want to see a Bill Murray, Andy McDowell movie, they come that first day. They come that first week. The second week, about half that many
Right.
people come the third week. And by the end of the month, they take the movie out and they put something in. For Groundhog Day, every week, Trevor said, it got more and more and more. And he said, that is so rare that doesn't happen. He says, that means word of mouth the first week.
Right.
And people are seeing it a second time the first week. So we had no idea that was going to be successful at all.
Yeah, I saw it twice in the theater. So the first time I saw it, I believe, was the second weekend, and absolutely loved it. And then when I went to college, they had like one of those like, first run movie theaters are like $1.50. The movie would go out and then just come back into those theaters, and they had it there, and loved it even more the second time. But you get that role, and you were only on screen, I think, for like 4.5 minutes.
No. I
No,
mean, over and over again, though. Over and over again.
right.
I make.
Yeah, I think
No,
I think you added up. I don't think you're on too much, but you made such
well,
an impact.
it's just, it's such a great script.
Right.
Danny Rubin and Harold Ramis wrote such a great script. And it was so well done that, a lot of times when you think about it, Ned is the first person Bill really meets in town, and it's how he learns that he's caught in time is pretty much by seeing Ned again and again. So it's not only it's a part that has impact.
Oh, totally.
So that yeah.
Yeah. But if you look at it, because like other, like, say, Darth Vader from Star Wars was only on camera for 12 minutes. And you look at like Hannibal Lecter, right? Anthony Hopkins
Yeah.
won the Oscar in the picture. 16 minutes he was on camera. So,
Well, there you go. But it's 16 minutes with Anthony Hopkins. What his close up of like, well, Miss Darling, what
yeah,
are you going to do about it?
right.
It's enough to creep you out. I remember I wished I was wearing diapers when I saw that show the first time. Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah,
It was like, oh my God,
yeah,
heaven help us.
right. And he was just, completely creepy. And then you hear the breathing of Darth Vader. I mean,
Oh yeah. Well,
you know,
yeah, that was a whole different.
yeah,
That
right.
Star Wars was a whole
Yeah,
amazingly different thing. Yeah.
right. I mean, Ned Ryerson's not as,
I
creepy, scary, but, it's
my
just
my
back in
roommate
short time.
my roommate in college was Jim McClure, and he had a girlfriend, and she used to come to L.A., and that's when I was living with Beth, and we were living in West Hollywood. And so Jim's girlfriend Sigourney would come over and stay in our extra bedroom. And she was really upset because she was having a final audition for Airplane.
Okay.
And so Sigourney was in there saying, I don't know this Julie Haggerty girl. She's awfully good. I think I may lose. And I go, Sigourney, you're out of your mind. You're such a great actress, and I'm sure whoever this Julie Haggerty person is,
Right.
you know, and then, you see Airplane. I was doing children's theater at the time. You see Airplane, and you go like, oh, well, Julie Haggerty is a superstar.
Right.
And then Sigourney's movie comes out, and I'm doing children's theater. I'm still in my leotards, and I go with the cast, well, let's go see Sigourney's movie came out. And we sit in for Alien, and we go in and we're going like, what? What is this? And it just so happens that Sigourney was in one of the hugest movies in film history with Alien. And we had no idea. So you have no idea before you make a movie if it's going to succeed or fail or whatever. And Groundhog just turned out, because it's attached to a holiday, and we had cable TV at the time,
Yep.
they needed to have something to fill that space. And everybody in the universe saw Groundhog Day many times.
Yeah. And circle it back to Sigourney and Star Wars. She's going to be in The Mandalorian that's going to come out. So there you go.
There it goes,
Yeah. Yeah.
superstar.
Yeah, absolutely. And a real, like, like role model for like women, a real, like, because that character Ripley was like a real strong, action hero that women could look and girls could look up to.
I know, but it's a rare. I mean, it's hard to look up to Ripley as kind of a role model because they don't let you carry that many weapons on the street. And but Sigourney has always had that kind of power, and Julie Haggerty has always had that kind of absolute delight. Julie and I are still like best friends. We ended up doing a show on Broadway, and she played my girlfriend for a year on
Right.
Broadway, and we just became the best of friends. So, it's a small world, and there's 12 people in the world, and most of them are friends. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Do you get PTSD when Groundhog Day comes around every year?
um, no, I'm usually invited somewhere. In fact, the last 3 or 4 years, I've been invited to help pull the groundhog. Now, that is a professional does
Yeah,
that,
you can't
but
touch it.
I'm there at his side to help the groundhog be taken out of his little cage in Woodstock, Illinois, where we shot the movie. So the people in Puxatawny, which is the real
Yeah.
birth of Groundhog, it's a completely different celebration. I've been to Puxatawny too for Groundhog Day, and there it's like very creepy, very holy, and very creepy in the
Right.
middle of the night in the middle of the woods. But Groundhog Day in Woodstock, Illinois, is a party, a nonstop party, which is as it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard that you got the role of Al in Home Improvement first, and you had to give that up to shoot Groundhog Day.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. They gave me I got the part in Home Improvement, and then they said I couldn't do both, and it was a huge, huge, huge decision. But at the time, you think like, are you going to do a feature, or are you going to do a TV pilot?
Right.
And so I thought, well, a feature, Harold Ramis, Bill Murray, that you really back then the hierarchy was you do a film as opposed to doing a TV pilot. But I mean, I'm happy I did Groundhog Day. I don't regret it. It's when you do a series like Home Improvement, it devours your life. I mean, you'll be rich for the rest of your life. I mean, you'll never have to worry about work again. But at the same time, it'll be very hard for you to get any roles after that because you will be associated with that one part on TV.
Right.
Hard to do movies, and you have early retirement, which can be nice if you play golf or something like that. You know, I've always enjoyed acting, so I'm glad I'm glad I've gone from project to project.
Right. I mean, like with Ned Ryerson, you weren't like pigeonholed with that character. I mean, you look at other stuff you've done, like before that. I mean, you were menacing, you were scary. I mean, and just like jumping to Memento for a second, Sammy Jankis, that was such a impactful character. Also, very limited screen time in that, and both those movies, you made such a lasting impression.
Yeah, the Sammy Jenkins one, I went in on that, and I had a unique experience in that I had before I went in on that audition. First of all, I read the script of Memento, and I go like, damn, this is like one of the greatest scripts ever written. I mean, it's insanely good. And so, but I had this experience where I had a kidney stone and I was bleeding internally. Annie, my wife, she got me to Cedars-Sinai, and they decided to use an experimental drug on me that they wanted to use on big people like me because I'm like 6'3", 200 pounds, whatever. And this was a drug where you feel the pain, the anesthesia, you feel the pain, but you don't remember it. You forget it. So they can say to big people, Stephen, get on the surgical gurney. And you go, you get on the gurney. Stephen, stay lying down and pull the cover up to your chin, and you do it. So they don't have to have anybody help you. They give you the instructions, you do it, then you forget. Then they operate on you. You have enormous pain, but you forget it immediately. So that's kind of crazy. But when I went in on Memento, and I was talking to Chris about it, I said the thing is, like any anesthetic, it wore off over time. It didn't wear off immediately.
Right.
So I said, I understand this movie, this script, and this part because I lived this part. Is that after the surgery, I would end up born this one moment, and I'd be holding half a glass of water in the living room. And I didn't know if I was going to the kitchen to fill up my water glass or if I had just been in the kitchen and was drinking water, and I was just born this moment. I remember one graphic example. I went to the bathroom. I went to the potty, and I'm standing over the toilet holding little Steven, and I'm born that moment. And I didn't know if I was about to pee or if I had already peed and I'm just still standing there. And Annie, my wife, is in the next room. She had been dealing with this for a week. She just yelled, "You finished 5 minutes ago. Flush the toilet and zip up and come back to bed." Thank goodness I had a good wife to help me. But that's how I got that part. And it was, of course, the movie's brilliant. The movie's Memento's brilliant.
Yeah. First of all, having kidney stones is the worst pain I've ever had in my life. That's the worst ever. I don't
The worst. It's terrible.
Yeah. I had that a couple of years ago. Hopefully never again. Hopefully never again.
Now, what do you eat? Because, it's really linked to what you eat. You have to change your diet.
Yeah, to be honest, my diet is not great. To be honest, and it took a toll on me. Has it changed? Have I learned my lesson? Probably not. So, I'm probably
next time you have a kidney stone.
Yeah.
The best advice I ever got is start drinking beer and don't stop. As soon as you feel that first pain, drink beer and continue drinking beer. If you have to drink a whole case, keep drinking it because it expands everything inside of your body and forces everything out.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
Okay. Well, try
and
it.
It's beer. How can that hurt you?
Yeah, not at all, right?
No
bad decisions have been made with beer. Yeah. And they always say, like, oh, the worst pain is when you actually pass it. But no, it's from, the kidneys to the bladder. That's how I felt. The worst pain,
Yeah.
But, yeah. I don't think anyone wants to hear this anymore. So we'll move on. But yeah. But were you amazed that, like, Christopher Nolan's first movie was that brilliant? And, like, he just went on to just bigger, and better.
Bigger and bigger and bigger things. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. He's a great, great, great filmmaker. Just terrific.
Yeah.
At the time, it was his first film. It was like, oh, right. And it was just great working with him. He's just brilliant. We're lucky we're living in the age of Chris Nolan. He's given us tons of great films.
Exactly. And he takes his time. It's not like he churns one out every year. When it comes out, it's an event. You see it, and it's which I can't wait for. I think it's the Odyssey, right? I think that's the next one.
Odyssey, yeah. Can't wait.
I can't wait for that one. Absolutely. Has anyone come up to you with a Remember Sammy Jankis tattoo?
I don't remember. Here I am. I don't remember if they had the tattoo, but I have been approached by many times with Remember Sammy Jankis. With people coming up just whispering that, in an elevator, Remember Sammy Jankis. That they come up with. Or they come up with Bing.
Yeah.
Bing.
Do you get Watch That First Step to Doozy a lot too?
I get that some. I get a lot. Like this morning, I went on my morning walk and I met someone on the walk, Olga on the walk, and she says, "We've met before, haven't we?" Like on the walk. I said, "I don't think so." She says, "I'm Olga and you are, well, I'm Steven." "I know you. I know. Where did we meet?" I said, maybe on TV or movie, it's that people see you and they remember you from a performance or something, and then they just think you're somebody who worked at the office with them.
Right. Has anyone done that and said, I've seen you in this movie, but you were not even in that movie?
I'm sure that has happened.
Yeah.
That memory doesn't, but I'm sure that has happened. And they just think I was some other actor that was in the movie and was bald.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, yes.
Yeah. How much fun is it being a character actor? I mean, obviously being a leading role, you get the money and stuff like that, but just being so many, having different roles and just being able to, get your acting,
Yeah,
top.
I always wanted to go into acting because not for the money. I started in theater where you get almost nothing, but the challenge of acting and creating a part and all that was very fun and interesting for me. And my training was toward that. Like, how do you create a role? Like the books behind me, those are the Jewish books over here. But the books on the other side is Stanislavski. And it's like, that's what I trained. That's what I love. So I love like trying to create new characters or make old characters seem new. There's only so much you could do. But, I had great teachers, and that's all I really wanted to do. I think it's a huge responsibility to be a leading role, especially in television, or a leading role in a film. It's because if the film doesn't do well, you get tagged with that. And then it's very hard for you to get another leading role. But if you're a character actor, I've been in tons of films that didn't do well. But that didn't keep me from being in Groundhog Day or One Day at a Time on television. It doesn't matter. People just say, well, I know you. You've been in everything. And they only remember the good shows.
Right. Yeah. One show I absolutely loved that unfortunately got canceled after 1 year was Big Time in Hollywood, Florida.
The best show ever. Come on.
I love that. I had Marcus Giamatti on a couple months ago, who was the FBI agent in that show. Laugh out loud funny, some great
brilliant scripts,
yeah,
wonderful cast, wonderful directors.
Yeah. And just, Ben Stiller, I think, executive produced, and he had a cameo in it, but everyone
and it was just on the wrong network. It was when television was slowly branching out from the three biggies to other minor networks, and it was just on a smaller network, and nobody saw it.
Yeah.
But everybody loved it. Everybody who saw it loved it. It's certainly, what did we do? 10 episodes, 11 episodes, something like that.
Yeah.
But it was so funny, and the cast was so good. I mean, it's just directing was good. Everything about it was just delightful.
Yeah, and like your son, I think it was Alex, right? And Banger, who he like directed and created the whole show.
Yes.
Great, yeah.
Just beautiful.
Yeah. Did you have to audition for that one, or they approached you? How'd that?
We auditioned. Yeah, we all auditioned for that, and when you audition for the people who wrote the script, it's always good if you go in with a little, enthusiasm for the script. Well, what did you think of the movie? Well, the script was fine. I'm sure it'll improve over time. You don't do that when you're auditioning for the people who wrote it.
Right.
But with Big Time in Hollywood, Florida, the relief, the delight is you can go in and say, this is the best comedy script I've ever worked on, without a doubt. And I swear to God, it was so wonderful, so funny, so delightful, so filled with heart. What can you do? The world isn't fair. It isn't just, but it was the best show ever.
Yeah, it was great. Your chemistry with Kathy Baker was amazing. She was great.
Yes.
Yeah, and like Cuba Gooding Jr. I mean,
Cuba Gooding Jr.
There. I don't know if he ended up just playing himself, but it's a heightened side of him. But it was just a cameo.
It was so good.
It was really good. I think it's still on Amazon Prime if you want to check it out. It's
really? Though that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank God it's not just lost to the ages. It was delightful.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Now, obviously, you've done great comedy, you've done great drama. Which ones do you prefer?
Well, I guess I have to say I like great comedies better. Working on a comedy is always more challenging. And yeah, I think like when I did Mornings at Seven on Broadway, we did that for a year, and it was both comedic and had the heart moments. So those are my favorite. The ones that are basically a comedy, but follow the true Greek formula of comedy that it not only makes you laugh, but it makes you feel, makes you see the world differently. So the deep, like Groundhog Day, the great comedies I prefer the most. The kind of silly stuff that isn't true, I I mean, I enjoy that because the audience usually laughs. But if you do something like One Day at a Time with Norman Lear,
Right.
that's wonderful. If you do the Goldbergs with what the greatest group of people in the world on the Goldbergs in terms of production and writing and everything. It's just wonderful going in and even on the Goldbergs usually being the straight man. It's wonderful because Wendy's going to do all the work, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the greatest, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, and just like I love that show. And just being, of that age, growing up in the 80s and stuff like that, just seeing everything again, just kind of, reminiscing and stuff like that, and also being Jewish and stuff like that. So it was a great show.
And
How,
as I get older, I find I don't know if it's the parts I play, but I find kind of the mediums mix. And there are many shows I do recently that both are either very funny or very heartbreaking at the same time in the same show. That seems to be the flavor that's happening now, and I really love that. I love that.
yeah. How many principals have you played? You played so many principals. I mean,
No,
you played obviously on Goldberg's, voiced one. I mean, the Loud House. I remember like, my son used to watch that show.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah,
ton,
just a lot of principals, a lot of teachers. I played a lot of bad teachers.
right?
Like on the Goldbergs. All, but and
Rabbis now.
rabbis and God, Lindsay Lohan with
Oh yeah, Freaky Friday. Yeah,
Freaky Friday. I played a mean teacher in that one. It was so those are always good. I find the key to a part is how much, whether it's comedy or drama, is how much are you going to be to pay for the consequences of your actions. And so their teachers, if you're somebody who feels like you're always going to have to pay for the consequences of your actions, it could be kind of funny because you're like, just a second, let's rethink this.
right.
And if you're like Freaky Friday, that you feel you're somebody who is entitled and that nobody is going to cross you, even if you're head of study hall.
Right.
That could be funny too, but it's a whole different thing. So it's fun because you get to approach things from different sides.
Yeah. When you were in school, did you ever go to the principal's office?
I was a good boy when I was in school. I had it was school was transformative for me because I became ill. I
Okay.
was very ill, and I think it was my 13th birthday. I guess today I am a man,
Yeah, right.
you know,
Yeah.
and I had just finished doing a play at the summer work stop. I think it was like The Ghost of Hootenholler or something like that for the summer park festival play, and I won Best Actor, by the way,
Oh,
in
no.
The Ghost of Hootenholler. Yeah, thank you very much. And I felt like I was ready to take off. And that night I had these incredible pains when I went to bed, incredible pains. Can I say something gross? Can I say?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I kind of made it to the toilet, and I kind of was sick to my stomach, but I get up and the toilet is filled with blood.
Ugh.
Filled with blood. So I'm scared to death.
Right.
I get mom and dad. I wake mom and dad up. Dad's a doctor. Mom shrieks. From then on, the next day, I start going to all sorts of tests, all sorts of things, going to the hospital, getting x-rays of all sorts. So I'm missing lots of school, all sorts of things. Mom is certain that I'm going to be dying of cancer soon. I couldn't eat. I couldn't eat anything, or I'd just start bleeding again. So I started losing weight. Couldn't play at school. So I had nothing but study halls. I had English, math, and 4 study halls that I would go to. And so the first thing I started to do was read plays in study hall. And the first play I decided to read was King Lear. I don't know why.
Right.
I didn't know Shakespeare or anything. I start reading this. I can't make any sense of this. And then one of the characters in King Lear near the beginning says, "Who is it that can say this is the worst?" And I go like, oh, I know what that means. So this is something I know. So I spent my time in school reading plays. And when I got to high school, about the only thing I could do was debate. I couldn't really play at all. And I did plays and I did debate. That was all I could do. And I eventually became good at doing the plays and ended up that was what I wanted to do, was be an actor. And that's how that whole thing came about, was because of crisis. And I think I stopped bleeding internally after about a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a long time. And I still, mom and dad were still very careful about me not playing. I lost all this weight. It was very sad, very scary. But I really glommed onto and appreciated the things I could do. So I loved debating. I loved poetry, interpretation, and I loved doing the one-act plays or whatever I did in school. I loved that. So that's all I ever wanted to do, was be an actor. And when I was in college and I had, a terrible teacher who hated me, and she was going to make sure that I was, I never got cast really at SMU in the drama department there, not much. And I could tell that my acting teacher hated me.
Why?
The reason she hated me, I assume, was that I thought acting was a joke. The first year as a freshman, I auditioned, and I did a speech from As You Like It. "These trees shall be my books, and in their barks my thoughts all character, that every eye within this forest look shall see thy virtue witnessed everywhere. Oh, run, run, Orlando, carve on every tree the fair, the chaste, the inexpressive she." So the second year, we had this new teacher come in. And so Hobgood, the head of our department, said, "Stephen, we want you to audition again because the new teacher hasn't seen you." I said, "But Hob, I've already done freshman audition. I don't want to be a sophomore doing it." He says, "Oh, it's a good idea." So me, being a jackass as I was, decided I would do the same speech I did the year before, but I would write "Hi Hob" on my butt, and I would do the speech as a striptease. And at the end, I would bend over in my underwear, with "Hi Hob" written on my butt. So I did that, and it went over big. I gotta say, the audience was in hysterics, and especially Hob, head of the department, was laughing so hard he fell on the ground. So it was appreciated, but this teacher did not appreciate it. So she decided to torture me. So I never got cast really at SMU much in anything again. She gave me an unsatisfactory critique. And at SMU, two unsatisfactory critiques, and you're kicked out of the program.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like my sophomore year, she gave me an unsatisfactory critique, and I thought, oh my God, if I have one more, I'm out of here. But I could tell this person hated me. I could tell she hated. Her name was Joan Potter, and she's no longer with us. Whew, so she can't sue. But
Right.
anyway, she hated me. So I didn't get cast at SMU. So what I did was I went out to the local Lort Theater, Theater 3. I got my equity card, and I started acting in Dallas
Mark.
instead of not in college.
Yeah.
So I did Young Abe Lincoln, and I did Canterbury Tales and Godspell and The Importance of Being Earnest. I was doing like real plays for real people and getting paid an equity salary, which this teacher really hated. She hated the fact that I skirted around what she did, but I still knew she was full of mischief. So I knew with the second unsatisfactory critique, I would not be allowed to graduate.
Okay.
So I asked go take water.
Absolutely.
There was one teacher that liked me, and that was Tony Graham White. There was one teacher who liked me, who was Tony Graham White, who was my theater history teacher, because I loved theater history. I loved, as you see, the plays behind.
Yeah.
I loved plays and authors. I loved it. So Tony was one of the people who was allowed to give you the graduate exam. And I explained my situation to him. And I said, is it possible I could take my graduate exam early? And if I take it and if I pass, you not tell anybody, but you hold that test for me in case I need it.
Right.
And Tony said, I can do that. So one afternoon in my sophomore year, near the end of my sophomore year, I took the graduate exam. Later in the hallway, Tony whispered, "Flying colors," and saluted me. And sure enough, junior year goes by, not cast in anything. I'm doing stuff at Theater 3, and I even get my SAG card and do a movie in Dallas, which Joan hated.
Right.
Then senior year, a month before we are to have the graduate exams, Hobgood comes up and gives, the head of the department gives me the bad news. I'm sorry, you've just been thrown. Joan Potter gave you your second unsatisfactory critique. You won't be able to graduate. And I said, why? I have the hours, I have the grades. Why not? He says, well, you can't take the graduate exam. I said, I've already taken it. He said, that's impossible. We give it next week. I said, call Tony Graham White. He has my test. I took it last year in an envelope. And Tony comes up to Hobbs' office, sealed envelope, cuts it open in front of Hobgood, pulls out the test. I had made an A. Then Tony salutes me and leaves the office. So I graduated first in my class at SMU Drama Department. Thank you very much, Joan. And Joan came when I did my first Broadway play in New York. She came backstage and said, you're still no good. And I said, I know, and you just paid $135 to see me.
Good. Wow, what a bitch.
What a bitch. What a monster. Yeah, and she you know, they say, you know, she died as she lived, in that the next job she had, her assistant double-crossed her and got her fired. Something like that. Anyway, there was some sort of thing to where, you know, she had troubles in the future too.
I mean, how spiteful you have to be to someone to
she just wanted to have power over people. She was just a nasty person. But you know, that was good. But you know, it was at SMU I met Beth, and you know, Beth and I were a couple for like 16 years or something. And that was delightful until it wasn't. And you know, that was wonderful. And Beth ended up out of nowhere winning the Pulitzer Prize for Crimes of the Heart. Amazing, amazing play. Just great play.
I saw
And
the movie. The movie was great.
I got to direct Miss Firecracker with Holly in New York, so that was great. And we did The Wake of Jamie Foster on Broadway, which wasn't successful, but it was still great to do. And then we went our separate ways, and I hope she's doing well, and I'm doing well because I met Ann, and we've been married now, God, what, 36, 37 years, something like that.
Don't get it wrong. Don't get it wrong.
No, I know I know I'm gonna get it wrong. Maybe 38 years. I think Annie and I were in bed the other night. We were going like, wait a minute. Is it 36, 37, 38? I don't know. We have a son who's 36 years of age, so I assume it's 37 or 38, but I'm not sure. But I got to tell you, how lucky.
It's awesome.
I have had the luckiest life of anybody. I was able to avoid like death as a child. I was able to have the career I wanted as an actor, and then I was able to have love and a long lasting love in my life. So I can't complain about anything.
That's great. Yeah, I'm going to celebrate my 25th in July.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And when I think it was when my mother died. When my mother passed away, I decided I never got bar mitzvahed.
Okay.
I decided I was at the time I was going to a semi kind of Orthodox light sort of synagogue. I started going to a different synagogue, which was conservative, but they had minions in the morning and the evening. So I said, I'm going to commit to doing minyan for my mother morning and evening for a year.
Okay.
For her passing, and I did. And I thought, damn it, I'm going to get bar mitzvahed. So I talked to the head rabbi there.
Right.
And he said, we'll start the bar mitzvah program, Stephen. We could do that. So I was able to satisfy my mother's wishes for me and get bar mitzvahed, which was one of the scariest things I ever did.
Yeah, I was a Hebrew school dropout. And like I just Hebrew school dropout. I could not comprehend just reading Hebrew. So I got tutored for my bar mitzvah. And I read my Haftorah in English. It was all phonetic. Yeah.
I'll tell you, this was sneaky.
Right.
I had a tutor. I had all that. And I talked to the head rabbi, and I said, I have a little bit of concern over this. And he said, come with me. He says, do you have your phone with you? And I said, I do. Yeah. He said, let's say the blessing over the Torah. So the two of us said the blessing over the Torah. We pulled the Torah out. He opened the Torah up. He says, get your phone, photograph this. I photographed my Torah reading.
Translated?
No, just the Hebrew.
Okay.
Just the Hebrew. He says, right. Now work on this, and now work on it with the one with the vowels. Mm. And you will know this by the time you have to do it. And I did. Preparation.
Great.
It's like my acting thing worked. Like there's no such thing as too much preparation. You need preparation.
Yeah. So gosh, that was how long ago did you do it?
Oh God. Oh, I'm bad now that I'm like 75, almost 75. It's like the years go so fast. I think was I in my 50s, something like that, and. I remember I was working on some TV show, and Annie, my wife, she was saying like, do you mind if I kind of go out for the evening? And I was like, oh dear, because I'd been in a relationship that went south, when when you go different ways,
Right.
and all this kind of stuff. And after a few months, she said, Stephen, I need to talk to you. And I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
She said, you know, I've been going out in the evening. I decided I wanted to join you and become Jewish.
Oh, wow.
I've been going to Jewish conversion classes, and I want you to come to the University of Judaism with me for my conversion ceremony. I was, now, I have been going to minions all over, you know, morning and evening, and Abe, my dear old friend who was at Auschwitz, you know, he says, so who you married? I go, Abe, I'm married to Ann. You know, she's not, never marry a shiksa. He says, never marry a shiksa. I said, Abe, you know, we're in love. It's just, never marry a shiksa. So I told Abe, I said, Abe, I have to tell you, Annie, she's taking me to convert. She's going to convert. University of Judaism, we're going this week. And Abe goes, no, I told you never marry a shiksa. Ann converts, and she comes home and she says, okay, now some things are going to change around here. And she gets more strict than me in terms of everything. We're going to go to services, and we're going to get rid of the bacon, and we're going to, from now on. And I'm saying, Abe, you were so right. So now Annie is stricter than I am. So it's great. We've had a wonderful life together.
That's great. Yeah, I've been together with my wife for 33 years. And when we set up on a blind date, and she, when my friend, we had a mutual friend, she says, Noel, because he was like, that's not really a Jewish name. It's like, is he Jewish? And then my friend goes, Fogelman. It's like, oh, okay, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. She's the poser Jew in the relationship. You know, she brings it out during holidays and stuff like that. You know, but my son he went through it, and after from his I figured, all right, he's done. He wanted to stay. He got confirmed, got everything else, and I was very impressed that he wanted to stay. So, yeah.
Well, you know, the one thing I could say about Judaism is that, like the Talmud is behind me, back there. That's the Talmud and the Midrash and all that stuff. Those guys are the smartest people that have ever lived on the face of the earth. I mean, you talk about Hillel, and you talk about the rabbis who were around at this time through difficult times, and the advice they give. It's like, okay, you know, that's what is, you know, I remember in the period of Joan Potter, where I was in such despair. I remember, if I'm not for myself, who is? If I am for myself alone, what am I? And if not now, when? And I never understood as a kid studying Hillel what that line meant. I mean, I understand it is do unto others, you know, written maybe a little before Jesus did it, but at the same time, it's the same idea. If I am not for myself, who is? If I am for myself alone, what am I? And I never understood the line, if not now, when? Until I was in the crisis with Joan Potter. And it was the whole thing of, am I going to take the exam early? Am I going to protect myself? What am I going to do? If not now, when? I thought, now is when.
Right.
That you suddenly realize now is when I went in for my heart surgery. The same thing came into my head. What are you going to take with you to the hospital? You could take one thing. You know, they say you could take one thing. I brought my prayer book.
Okay. Yeah.
If not now, when?
Right.
I was going like, hell, the odds of surviving the surgery were good. That
Yeah.
it wasn't a sure thing. It was a triple bypass.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't a sure thing. They tell you before you go in, say goodbye to anyone you need to say goodbye to. Take care of any and all unfinished business, and we'll see you at dawn tomorrow at the hospital. And so I said goodbye to my kids, each one of my kids. I said, I love you. I said goodbye to Anne.
Oh,
I called my brother, my sister. It's terrible.
yeah.
And you go, and I go in with my little prayer book. What the hell? And, at the end of my surgery, there was a knock on my door. And a guy came in, and I thought he was the guy with the blankets. I said, yeah, I'll take a couple more. And he goes, a couple more what? The heated blankets. I need the heated blankets.
Yeah.
He says, no, I'm a rabbi. I said, oh, why are you here?
Yeah.
He says, well, I heard, you had a prayer book and you wanted to see someone afterwards. So I figured I'd come in and see you afterwards. I go, well, great.
Yeah.
If not now, when?
Exactly. Yeah. Can you get me some heated blankets, please?
Yeah, yeah. And the heated blankets would work too.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Have, have you ever experienced anti-Semitism?
Uh, duh.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in Oak Cliff where there were more Nazis. Now, I'm not being like flippant with
Yeah.
overusing the word.
Right.
Like one of the kids on our basketball team, we went over to his house for snacks. He had a bust of Adolf Hitler, a bust of Adolf Hitler on his mantelpiece, and there was a huge Nazi flag in their kitchen, on the wall of the kitchen.
Right.
And I'm going like, what? Remember you guys lost the war, and you lost in no uncertain way.
Yeah.
You were trounced,
Yeah.
and your guy committed suicide. It didn't turn out well for you, but there was lots of anti-Semitism and in Oak Cliff, but the acting helped. The fact that I was doing debate and not sports, that I didn't really encounter the same kind of people that, the tough guys, the people in debate were the guys who like poetry readings.
Right.
So I was with a much more genteel crowd. But yes, lots of anti-Semitism. I was doing a thing with Jamie Foxx. Jamie was not only in it, but I think he was producer of it. And so we're watching the dailies together. Yeah. And Jamie's like watching my thing. He goes, I think I hear Oak Cliff in the house. And I said, yeah, I lived in Oak Cliff. Jamie, how do you know what Oak Cliff is, which is a suburb of Dallas? Yeah. He says, I'm from Oak Cliff too.
Oh, wow.
I said, you are out of your mind? He says, well, what high school did you go to? I said, well, Kimball High School. He goes, oh, you went to the fancy high, you went to Kimball High School. Excuse me. And I said, well, what high school did you go to, Jamie? He says, I went to Sunset. I went like, oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, my God. So that was the tough high school.
Right, okay.
They won all the sporting events. It was, Jamie, Oak Cliff had this white flight thing that black people were not allowed to own property in Oak Cliff at the time. They were not able to own a home. So like, I had no idea that we were living in this kind of racist kind of, I just loved our neighbors. They were sweet people most of the time. Where we lived in this fairy kingdom of all this kind of stuff. I had no idea that even existed. Well, I learned my lesson that you could be in Wonderland for a while, but you can't stay there forever.
Right.
And you have to. Our maid, Lenora, a black woman, probably one of the greatest people I ever knew in my life.
Right.
Great person. One of my personal heroes. And she cleaned our house and everything. And I had no idea at the time that black people were outlawed in Oak Cliff. None. But when I graduated from SMU, went off, became an actor, I would come back to town, and my brother and I, and sometimes my sister, we would come and visit our old home because Lenora ended up buying our home from us.
Oh, wow. That's great.
She was, and I want to get this, she sold Avon products door to door and became very good and became an officer at Avon. And then she bought properties. She bought buildings and houses in Oak Cliff. And she came up and knocked on our door one day and she said, I always wanted to own the house I worked in. And she bought it in cash.
Wow.
Here's a wad of cash. And she bought our home. And so whenever we would go visit Lenora and her husband James in Oak Cliff, it was in our home. The exact furniture we had as kids was still there.
Oh.
Yet, we were,
Yeah.
There was the dinner, there was our kitchen table.
Right.
There was the pool table I bought with my money for working with Uncle Jaime in the den. It was the same house. And so I got to visit with Lenora and James and their kids there who lived a great life there after Oak Cliff changed their ways.
Good. So you really were a guest in your own home.
Guest in my own home.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So when you play a role like in Mississippi Burning, when you play head of KKK, I know it's acting and stuff like that, but like, how do you get ready for a role like that? Being,
Well,
Ju-
well, I've known bullies in my time. Like Joan Potter and
right.
and some of the, and I've known racists in my time, like people who had the bust of Adolf Hitler in their kitchen. I know how pleasant they were. They were pleasant. They were fine. There's, so in terms of Mississippi Burning, you have to find the element that's positive, that you could feel, that you could play in that. You don't ever want to play a villain. So you had to consider that my character was trying to save his society.
Right.
That he was, Alan Parker asked me, how are you going to play this part? And I said, I'm going to play it like damn Abraham Lincoln. I'm going to be George Washington. I am going to save my civilization from ruin. Right. You have to be a hero in your own play. And then the story in the movie creates, I remember when I went to do that show in Mississippi, which happened to be where, my girlfriend Beth had lived. Okay. For years. She grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. That was our headquarters for Mississippi Burning. And I went into the bar, I guess the restaurant at the Holiday Inn or wherever I was staying, and someone came up to me to the table and says, we want to talk to you up at the bar. If you could please come up to the bar, we want to talk to you. I go, sure. I came up and goes, we're with the Ku Klux Klan here in Mississippi, and we know the role you're playing in the movie, and we want you to know we're going to be there, and we're going to be watching you. And I said, well, you have to understand, the way I'm going to play the role, I'm not going to be a villain. I'm going to be playing. He says, We don't care about any of that stuff. I just want you to know we know who you are, and we know where you're staying, and we're going to be there the night you perform. So just be aware.
Wow.
And I said, okay, it's all fine. It'll all be okay. I at that time I did it. Beth had already written Crimes of the Heart, and everybody was eager to do the movie of Crimes of the Heart, including Alan Parker. And Beth and I had broken up at the time, but I was thinking, like, this is Jackson, Mississippi, where I spent so many Christmases and so many whatever of seeing. What if I stalked her? What if I just rented a car and drove over to her house? So I did that before I started shooting. I drove over to their house, parked across the street from Beth's house, and then I could see through the windows of their house. I could see Beth's mother walking in. Oh God, this is so creepy. And then her sister Lynn, and then God, I wonder if Beth is in town. I didn't even know if Beth was in town. Oh God, what if I run into her? Oh, this is gonna be terrible. So I ran back. It was the day I had the final audition with Alan Parker for Mississippi Burning in Jackson, Mississippi, in a hotel room. And I go in just in time. Alan has all the windows blackened out, and he has a little light on the little table in his bedroom there. He says, sit over there. That's where we're going to shoot your scene. You're going to do the speech there. And he started the camera. He goes, so, your girlfriend lives in this town, doesn't she? And I go, yes, Alan. And you two broke up recently, right? I go, yes, Alan. Why? I said, because we both had a disagreement over, we both had a disagreement as to, what life together means. We both had a disagreement. He goes, very good, very good. Have a seat now. Let's do the audition. And he said, I had dinner with her last night. And I said, you did? He says, she's a very charming girl. I said, yeah, we just had a disagreement as to what constituted a joke. And that was our big problem. And we did the scene. And I left, and I'm going around, and my phone is ringing in my hotel room. And it's my agent in L.A. It says, Alan Parker just called me and said, you have the part.
Wow.
So it was like crazy. But everybody wanted to do the movie of Crimes of the Heart, and I think Alan did too. Maybe he wanted. But I certainly don't think I could have helped him with that.
Right, yeah. So she was in the house then?
She was in the house when I was stalking them. She was there in town in the house. She had dinner with Alan before he wanted to have dinner, because she was having dinner with lots of directors like who wanted to do her show. But Alan was so great.
Yeah.
I'm making this up now, but he had been through a bad divorce. I mean, he had. Right. And he assumed that I was in the same situation, which I sort of was.
Right.
And even though Beth and I were never married, but we were breaking up after 16 years. And I think he wanted to just reach out a hand of fellowship. And so my first day there, he says, I've changed your contract from a 2-week contract to a run-of-the-picture deal.
Oh, wow.
Because we don't know what the weather's going to be like here, and your scene's outside, and we have 1,500 extras, and so we have to dodge thunderstorms. But I thought maybe you would like to follow me around and watch me do what I do. And so Alan took me around as a director, took me into cinematography meetings, took me into costumes, took me into set. I mean, it's amazing what Alan did. And I remember when I did Groundhog Day, I went to the premiere of Groundhog Day, and standing in front of the theater was Alan Parker.
Wow.
And I went running up to him and hugged him and said, Alan, I never thanked you appropriately for what you gave me on Mississippi Burning. You gave me such a gift of teaching me so much about filmmaking and everything. Thank you so much. He goes, oh, stop it. Yeah. You just better be good in this movie. I said, I hope so too.
Yeah.
But Alan Parker was one of the great spiritual and educational forces in my life. Just a great, great man.
Yeah. I had Michael Ensign on last year, and he sung the praises of Alan Parker like all the time, you know.
Just amazing. Alan Parker, Harold Ramis, same thing. Like, just amazing the amount I was able to learn from Harold Ramis and Alan Parker. Just amazing the gifts they gave me.
Did you end up seeing the Klan members after you shot your scene?
When I did the scene, the audience was 1,500 Klan members.
Wow.
I never saw the head again.
Okay.
But Alan came up to me and he said, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the racist stuff out, and let's just shoot the other stuff first, and I'll do close-ups first, and then I'll move back to get the audience stuff, and then when the racist part of your speech. But I learned a lesson a long time ago that if a director doesn't say cut, you don't cut. You keep going. And so we were doing this, and Alan on one take didn't yell cut. And I started going into the racist part of the speech, and the audience just came alive. They were just screaming, yes, 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 yes. You ought to be president. Yes. And Alan came up to me and just said, oh, I didn't expect this. Let's keep shooting. And he loved it. He says, let's keep doing this part of the speech. And he got all the audience stuff and everybody screaming because they were thrilled that they thought that the movie was going to make them look bad. But I was just making them look worse. I was making them look good. You know, it was like I was giving him the message without it twisting the mustache of saying I'm a villain.
Yeah.
You know, I was coming across like a hero, which is what they wanted.
Right, because the villains don't think they're bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I love Spaceballs. It's one of my favorite movies, and I'm kind of apprehensive about the sequel, you know, because comedy sequels never really pan out that well, especially when there's like decade gaps in them. But just talk to me. Well, first question is, are you going to be in the sequel?
I hope so.
Oh, okay.
I hope so. I'm not sure, but I hope so. They mentioned that they wanted me in it, but I don't know if I'm in it. So I'll have to see if they pick up something and shoot me. But it was my first real job doing Spaceballs.
Right.
I was working on a play with Bill Pullman at the time. And at LATC downtown, and my wife Ann, before she was my wife, we were all working together. And Bill said, oh, you know, I'm going to be doing this Mel Brooks movie coming up. And I go, oh, that's fantastic. You know, Mel's going to come see our show. I go, oh, my God. I got it. So I told Mom, I said, I'm doing this play downtown, and Mel Brooks is going to be coming to the show. So Mom knew Mel Brooks, so she thought, oh, this is something. So we do the play, and afterwards Mel comes up to me and goes, so, you know, we're doing this thing, Spaceballs, and there may be a part in it for you. Want to come in and audition? You know, come in and audition this week. I go, God, yes. Because, okay. So I get the little speech I'm supposed to do as captain of the guard or whatever. And I work on that, and I go in to meet Mel that week in his office. And he goes, can you do it bigger? So I did it, you know, big. I want it even bigger. Okay. So I did it just huge. I just did it gigantic. And Mel goes, I think this will work. I think you'll be fine. This will be great. So you got the part. So we'll shoot this week, and what, I give you $1,000 to do the part. Is that good? And I go, oh my God. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Mel. Thank you. Oh my God. I called Mom, and I said, Mom, I got a part from Mel Brooks in a Mel Brooks comedy, and they're going to pay me $1,000. And my mother was going like, oh my God, you've arrived. So I show up on the set on the day of, and I sit there and eat craft services, and they don't get to me. And so the AD at the end of the day says, well, I guess we have to shoot you tomorrow. I said, okay. So I came in on Tuesday, and they still didn't shoot me. And then I ate craft services, and now he says, well, come back again tomorrow. And I'm going like, wait a minute here. So I come back on Wednesday, and they didn't shoot me. I said, listen, what's the deal? I'm coming here every damn day, and you're not. He says, well, how much do you get paid? And I said, Mel Brooks says I'm getting paid $1,000. He says, so you're getting paid $1,000 a day. So you've made $3,000 so far. I go, wait. What? You mean I get paid when I don't work? When I just show up and eat snacks? And he goes, yeah, that's right. I said, well, in my head, I'm going like, this is the career for me. Yeah. So I ended up shooting on Friday. So I made $5,000 for being captain of the guard and not shooting for 4 days, but just watching everybody go to their trailers, just sitting there eating snacks. So that's when I decided, yeah, really acting was for me. But I know Pullman not only went to do, a part in the show, but they put him up at Bondi Beach, where unfortunately, because Bill and I, we hooked up out here at another event, and he left the week before the terrorist attack happened at Bondi Beach.
Wow.
He and his family was staying out there when the guys came with the guns and were just shooting people on Hanukkah. So wow. I go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I think Mel is going to be in the movie. Yeah. But he didn't go there. He didn't go. He's 100 years old now.
Right. Yeah.
101 or something. So I hear he's going to be in the movie. So hopefully, I will too. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. It just, because Joan Rivers, obviously John Candy are no longer with us. But hope fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also love Seinfeld. So we're going, from one Jew to another now, all the Jews. So, and you had the first, season and a half, maybe 2 seasons, was somewhat episodes were a hard watch in that show, because it definitely changed over the seasons. But the heart attack is probably the highlight of that season.
It's a pretty funny show. They had it on again this week.
Yeah.
I happened to turn on Seinfeld, and there was my scene. I went like, oh my God. But it was Mark Hirschfeld. At the time, Mark Hirschfeld was a casting director. And now I think he's president of NBC or something like that. I mean, Mark is, he's not casting director anymore. But he called me up at home, and he said, have you ever heard of this show Seinfeld? I said, well, I've heard of it. Yes, I've heard of it. And he says, well, we're having trouble making this part funny. Can you come in tomorrow and see if you can make it funny? And I said, sure. And they were just shooting right down the street from me. So I rode my bicycle over to where they were shooting Seinfeld at CBS Radford, I think. It was just a few blocks away. So I just rode my bicycle over there, and so they give me the script. They look at the script, and I had just been getting ready to do a movie where I have a deaf and mute brother.
Okay.
And so I had to learn sign language for the deaf for the movie. So I got this. I said, what if, as a faith healer, I just do everything with fake sign language that, and just see, if it works that way. So Jerry said, well, go ahead, try it. Let's see if it works. So I did the scene with the sign language with Kramer, and, we did it. And Jerry goes, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that'll be funny. And so they said, well, come back tomorrow and we'll shoot the scene in front of a live audience. And I said, okay. And so that was it. And I had no idea, that Seinfeld would become, like you said, it changed over the years, and it became one of the greatest shows ever in the history of television. Met Larry David on the show, and he asked me to be Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And, but it was just amazing to watch, because it changed television. It really changed the way comedy was looked at completely. It's just terrific.
And like Larry would pop in a little bit throughout the years on the show, and he was in that episode too, playing in that space movie.
And you hear him, you hear his voice, because he played like Bubble Boy. You could hear Larry's voice. Yeah. Get out of here! You could.
Or like George Steinbrenner and stuff like that.
George Steinbrenner. You could hear Larry's voice doing all this. I told Larry, well, I did Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I told him that I actually had the Larry David moment on the airplane. I was flying on a thing from L.A. to Dallas, and a stewardess came by, walked past me, and then she turned back around. I thought she was going to say, are you an actor? And she goes, did you just touch my bottom? And I said, what? No. I think you touched my bottom when I walked by. And I go, no, I didn't. I don't even have my hands on the, no, right. I didn't. And she looked at me. She did that look thing, Then I see her go back and talk to the other stewardess. This guy touched my bottom, and I'm going like, it's a Seinfeld moment. Right. It's a Curb Your Enthusiasm moment. I'm going like, Larry, they were giving me the D look of like, I know he touched my bottom. I know he did.
Right. Gonna get the air marshal involved. Yeah. And the Simpsons would always predict the future on their shows, like eerily. And you're aligned with the Cleveland 117, San Antonio 109. That score actually hit exactly when those two matched up, a few years ago. And, there were a bunch of articles and, posts about it. So I guess Seinfeld predicts the future, a decade, 2 decades later.
It's too good.
Yeah. But I imagine your greatest highlight in your career is having an Onion headline, right?
What was I remember the Onion thing, and I think I have. What was the?
Oh yes, Stephen Tobolowsky's in this.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, I think I have the Onion thing back there. You end up with all this crazy stuff over a lifetime of doing show business. Because it's so public, but at the same time, it's so private. But yeah, it's a Stephen Tobolowsky part, or it's hysterical.
Yeah. Can you tell? I mean, I heard that you played with Stevie Vaughn in a band, right? Or he came to help you out for a day, right?
Hold the phone.
Okay.
Just a second. You'll appreciate this.
Oh, wow.
This is the album. This is the album we did. I was a freshman in college, and let me see, is this open? It is open. But my thing isn't in there. Anyway, yes, it was the first studio recording of Stevie Ray Vaughn. We did two. It was a Dallas bands. So there's 6 bands, and each band has 2 songs. And I didn't know Stevie Ray Vaughn. Bobby Foreman knew Stevie Ray Vaughn. And Bobby Foreman was one of these guys in high school who could play any instrument in the world. He was a genius. And I think he ended up at a while playing in the New Christy Minstrels. He ended up with a musical career.
Right.
But, our buddy was Jim Rigby, who ended up a Presbyterian minister in Austin, Texas. And we were picked to do 2 songs on this album of Dallas bands. And this Stevie Vaughn guy, Bobby, got to play lead guitar on our stuff on this album. Stevie was 15 at the time. It's the first studio recording of Stevie Ray Vaughn, and he played lead guitar. And I remember when we got into the studio, because it was one of these things like, we're not there for long. You know, he says, well, let's do one of your songs and let me hear what I'm going to do for my lead. So he listened to it, goes, okay, that's kind of a crappy song. So what if I start with a crappy lead and then I go into a good lead? And Bobby Foreman said, yeah, sure, let's do that. So it was one of those things where we just played the song and sang, and then Stevie starts this lead, and we're all like, huh? Wait a minute. And like the people in the booth, none of us had ever seen Genius before.
Right.
And close up, and we're like, what is going on here? And so the people in the room, I could see in all the grown-ups who are working the board and everything, the guy runs to the door and yells out in the hall, like, you know, he's gesticulating, and then all these people run in, and the guy goes, son, that was pretty good. Can you do another lead for us? And Stevie goes, sure, yeah, I can do this all day, man. So he went and did another lead, and I'm looking this way at the grown-ups in the room, and everybody is like they're looking at like something they had never seen in their lives, never thought they would ever see. It was like they're seeing Beethoven at the piano playing, and they're like, oh, it was holy. It was a holy moment. And when I ended up doing Great Balls of Fire, I was working with Jimmy Vaughn. I was doing Great Balls of Fire in Memphis. I was working with Jimmy Vaughn. He was in that movie. And Jimmy and I were goofing off with rock and roll stuff all the time. And we finished at Kiva Studios, which is where Eric Clapton recorded Layla, I think, and in Memphis. And we come out at dawn, and we've been smoking grass and drinking beer and doing all this stuff that musicians do. We go, well, let's go have breakfast. And there was a place near our hotel that was a little joint that was open. Right. And Stevie was sitting in there. And at that, we I came up, Stevie, yeah. Remember Cast of Thousands? He goes, man, don't do that. We don't talk about that, man. We don't. We sat down and we had breakfast. It was at that breakfast that Jimmy and Stevie was about to go play with Eric Clapton. And he asked Jimmy if he would like to come join him, and they'd make it a three guitar thing. And it was there that Stevie, at the end of the concert, Jimmy went, at the end of the concert, as the story goes, Stevie got on the helicopter, Jimmy jumps on the helicopter, and then Connie Crouch, Jimmy's wife, jumps on the helicopter. And then the guy says, ma'am, you're going to have to get off with, it's too much weight. And so she gets off the helicopter, and Jimmy goes, where my wife goes, I go. And he jumped off the helicopter. Then the helicopter takes off and doesn't make it. Jimmy said it just made it a little while and just blew up, burned up and crashed. And that was the end of Stevie Ray.
Yeah, no, it's awful, you know. But thankfully, we still have his music.
Thankfully, we still have his music, and there's nobody like him ever. You hear that lead, and you go like, I know who that is, man.
One of the greatest of all time.
One of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, without question. Yeah.
From Oak Cliff.
Wow.
Oak Cliff. He went to Sunset, I think.
Okay.
I think he went to Sunset.
Jamie
You
Foxx.
know that? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So how did you indirectly have Radiohead name the band after something?
Well, that was my crazy event. I had this thing that happened to me when I was in college. I think it was my sophomore year. So I was in love with Beth at this time, and we had this movement retreat. Beth wasn't on the movement retreat, but it was
Right.
us basically sophomores, and we went out to a lake or something doing movement class, and we were doing woo woo exercises, which I was not a fan of, where we're
Right.
doing all this stuff, holding hands, and we're sending positive energy to one another. And the teacher says, let's go around in a circle and say the first thing that comes into your mind. So we're holding hands, and I see this color flash in my head, and I hear this sound in my head. And they go around the circle, and people are saying, like, hobbit, hobbit, far out, cool, get down, all this kind of stuff. And it gets to me, and I go, I get that you're not who you say you are. And I'm talking to the teacher. I get that you have an assumed name, and your initials are J and K. Pause. And then we go to the next person, far out, hobbit, hobbit, Gandalf, hobbit, Frodo, Frodo, Frodo.
Right.
So at the end of the retreat, we're all heading to our cars from the lake, and this hand reaches out and grabs me, and it was the teacher. He says, why did you say what you said? I said, I don't know. I just heard this sound in my head, and you said, say the first thing that came into your mind, and it was that. He says, because I do have an assumed name, and my initials are J and K. And I ask you again, how did you know that? And I said, I don't know. Well, I told this to Beth when I got back, and she was thrilled. She said, we're going to make a fortune. We'll be a team, and I'll take the money, and we'll charge the people a quarter. We could charge $1, and you hold their hands, and you hear whatever you hear, and say whatever you say, and we'll keep the money. And I thought, oh, we're going into business together. Maybe this means we'll be a couple. So I thought it was an act of romance. And so we started doing this with people in the theater department. I was a sophomore, she was a freshman. That I would just hold someone's hands, and I would hear this sound and see this light or something, and I would say something to these people. And a lot of times it was right. A lot of times it was whatever. So anyway, we stopped. I stopped after Beth and I had amassed $16. I said, I've had enough of this. I'm done with this. We're not doing this anymore. Because the more I heard, the more I would continue to hear. And it was creeping me out, and it was very weird. So anyway, a few years pass, and Beth writes a play, Crimes of the Heart, and Beth wins a Pulitzer Prize, and Jonathan Demme and David Byrne are thinking they want her to write a movie for the Talking Heads.
Right.
And so David Byrne comes over to the house, and then Beth says, well, if you really want to, you should really talk to my sweetie, about this, because, he hears tones or he sees tones or something. And David Byrne goes, what? And I said, well, it's just this thing I did where I held people's hands, and I would hear this tone in my head or see this light. And I did this for a while, and I did it when I came to LA too, and I would just horrible things. I'd hear something and see something, and I'd talk to this girl in my acting class. I said, I get that. Were you attacked by your father? And she would break down in tears. Yes, how do you know this? It was horrible. And I go I just saw it. I just heard it. And so I thought, this is too much for me to keep doing this. I stopped doing it. So anyway, I told all this story to David. And so, oh, like a week or two later, I'm driving back up Woodrow Wilson up on the hill here. And then there's a knock on my car window, and it's David Byrne on a bicycle. He goes, Stephen, I just wrote a, I just wrote a song about your thing. Can we go back to the house? I want to play it for you. I have my guitar. And I said, sure, David. So we go back to the house of Woodrow Wilson. David comes in with his guitar, and he sits down and he plays Radiohead. And he says, so is it okay? Can I do this song? And I go, David, I'm amazed. I said, it's the greatest song I've ever heard. Thank you. It's just beautiful. It's just fantastic. So Beth and I wrote the screenplay for True Stories, which David pretty much rewrote the whole thing. But then, see, he did this smart thing. He did the smart thing. He called Beth and I up after we had finished the movie. And he said, I want you guys to take writing credit for the movie. Will you do that? He says, I know I did a lot of the writing. He says, but I don't want people to say this is a vanity project. I want you to. So, Beth and I said, sure, we'll take the writing credit for the movie. But basically, I'm happy we did that. Right. I'm glad we did. But yeah. David did most of the work. But when I saw the movie and Radiohead in the movie, the song Radiohead in the movie, I just felt like it's like one of the greatest markers in my life. There are always these different things that describe your life, but rarely do you get a rock and roll song that describes this very fraught period of my college years and getting together with Beth and breaking up with Beth, and it's all in that song, and right. I just love it. Yeah, and songs more than anything else, you picture it, you're brought into like a particular memory of your life and stuff like that, more so than like any other like medium, TV or movies, something like that. A song, 3-4 minutes, boom, exactly where you first heard that song, first kiss, first whatever, I'll tell you the end of I've never told anybody this before, but it'll be an exclusive for you. Ooh. The end of my Radioheadism was a birthday I had, and Annie, my wife, said I thought maybe we'd go out for dinner or something on your birthday, something like that. And I go, Sure. That sounds great, baby. I love that. And she said, it's going to be, hey, I tell you, if you want, use your ESP, see if you could figure out where we're going out to eat. And I go, okay. So I go I wrote down what my birthday would be.
Right.
And I said, we're going to go out to eat, but then I'm going to play on the grand piano at the LA Symphony, in the LA Symphony downtown. I'm going to be in the Symphony Hall playing on the grand piano. Is your birthday gift to me. Wow. Now I write that, I put it in a damn envelope.
Yeah.
And I go I'm laughing to myself going this is the end of it. Because, that is the most ludicrous thing in the world. That is never going to happen. But I heard the sound in my head. I wrote it all down. I gave the envelope to Ann. And Ann goes so the day comes up and she says I found a really nice place to go, and it would probably be good if you wore a coat and a tie. Maybe you should wear a coat and a tie. And right. Go okay. Yeah. And she said, you want to drive? And I go, sure, baby, I'll drive. So I'm driving the car, and she says, well, it's downtown. I hope that's not too far. And I go no, that's okay. That's okay. And she goes, actually, it's over by the, you know where we go to the symphony? Probably it'd be easiest if you just parked at the underground parking there at Disney Hall. I'm going okay. And park the car at Disney Hall. We come out, we go across the street to a restaurant. And then she's looking at her watch. She says, I think we need to go back now. Right. I go back, And there's my friend and filmographer, Robert Brinkman, with his camera crew there saying like, we brought your piano music from home. The symphony, our Richard Kagan had friends at the symphony. The symphony was open. They brought me in, led me up on stage. There is the grand piano at the center of the stage of Disney Hall. And he said, go play and we're going to film this.
Wow.
And I'm going like, oh my God, I'm dead. I am so dead. And so I get up and it was amazing. It'll be one of the most amazing experiences of my life. There was no audience there.
Right.
This was just me and a piano in Disney Hall. But the thing is, when you play on that piano where they set it up, you can hear everything report off of the wall when you're playing. You know, you could hear the balance of the treble and the bass. You could hear the amount of pedal you do, and you could have all of this control over the piano. It was like one of the great experiences of my life. But I knew on the way home I was going to be murdered because she was going to think that I was reading on her computer or looking at her phone or doing something for this plan. But that was the end. I said, that's the end of my ESP thing. I'm not doing this anymore. This is not bringing me joy. Yeah. This is bringing me stress. So I gave up on ESP.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was the end of it. That was the end. Yeah. I don't do it anymore, and I don't have people say, well, tell me what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't do it.
Right. So when you like come across Lord of the Rings, does it bring back memories?
Oh, the thing is, everything brings back memories. Yeah. That's kind of why I did the podcast,
right?
The Tobolowsky Files podcast, because it's just a way to go through my memories and get them down and not exaggerate the stories, but just to tell the stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of memory, do you remember like every TV show you guest starred on?
Not at all. I look at my IMDb.
Right.
I look at my IMDb. I go, I was a regular on that show, and I have no idea.
Right.
You know, because they have like the regular cast and the guest. I don't know what like Round the Flagpole was or Bozo's Big Chance or all these shows. I have no idea what these shows were. And I was like a regular on them. No, I have no idea. But, a lot of the problem, it wasn't a problem. I mean, it was a great thing, is that one of the most difficult things to do is to get network approval. Mm-hmm. So, you have to get all the executives to approve on somebody. So a lot of times I would go to Sony or to Paramount or someplace, and I got the network approval. And so they said, while you're here, jump over and do
this show.
Reba McEntire show.
Right.
We're doing Reba over at this stage. Go over there and do that. And then come over here and do this. And I wouldn't know exactly what shows I was doing. I just knew I was playing the bad teacher, the good teacher, whatever,
Right. Yeah. So I work at a cable station, and in New York also, it's like Channel 11, WPIX, are owned by the same company. So on the lobby, there's a bunch of TVs there, and they all have like the antenna TV or the rewind TV. So a couple months ago, I come in to the front door and I see 227 and Designing Women. And I shit you not, both of your scenes were playing on the TVs at the same time. And I'm like, I had no idea you were on either one of those shows. It's like, wow, that's kind of freaky. So
yeah, and again, that's another one. I'm thinking that those were both done at the same studio too. I'm thinking 227 and Designing Women. Yeah. I think those were both over at Rad. I'm thinking, I'm kind of putting my the Designing Women was the 4 greatest breasts in Georgia or whatever that was.
And Delta Burke and Annie Pop.
Yes.
Great cast. Yeah.
Great cast. Great cast.
All right. Yeah. I'll ask you one more question. And once again, thank you so much for your time today. This was fantastic.
My pleasure.
Yeah. What was it like working with O.J. Simpson?
It was daunting. It was he was a big star.
Right.
He was a very, very big star. And he had like an entourage and he had protection. So, I didn't really have any real interaction
Right.
with him. Yeah, it was just like he was the biggest star
Yeah.
probably at the time that I'd ever worked with, because it was significantly before the murders, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
one after the murders. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's. I remember I was nervous,
Right.
more nervous
Yeah.
meeting him than meeting some of the other people that were huge
Right.
stars. I was
Yeah.
nervous because he was a big football star too, and I thought, well, this could be the beginning of my career. Working with O.J. Simpson if they like me and want me for
Yeah.
So it was,
Yeah.
it was. There were other events, that happened on TV that were crazier and more amazing. One of the great here. This is one you'll like.
Right.
This is one you'll like. It has to do with Yom Kippur. You'll like this one.
Mhm.
So I'm working on One Day at a Time,
Yeah.
and they end up doing a very difficult special show, and they're going to have to work on Yom Kippur.
Okay.
So the producer and director came up to me and said, Stephen, we're going to have to work on Yom Kippur. Are you going to be able to do that? And I said, yeah. I'm here to do it.
Yeah.
I'm here to do this, and I signed a contract. I'll do it. I understand how important this show is and how important it is for us to work on that day. So Norman Lear, dear Norman Lear, came up to me Yom Kippur morning. We're in the studio. We're working. We're rehearsing. And he hugs me and thanks me for being there on Yom Kippur. And he says, come with me. And we go over to the living room part of the set while they're working on the other part of the stage. And he said, tell me about your Yom Kippurs from your childhood. Tell me about them, and I'll tell you about mine. And Norman and I sat there, and for about 40 minutes, told each other our Yom Kippur stories. And it's one of the most meaningful.
Wow.
We didn't do it the right way, but it was one of the most meaningful Yom Kippurs I had, just having that closeness with Norman Lear, who I love so much, who meant so much to me.
Wow. That's great. Yeah. I actually lied. I'll ask you one more.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and this is probably not a good segue, but
Okay.
I saw, and I'll be honest, I saw The Glimmer Man. I thought it was a terrible movie. I'm sorry, but terrible movie. But you were great in it for your brief scene. Talk to me about working with the great Steven Seagal.
That was one of the worst experiences of my life.
Oh, geez.
From going from the best experience of my life working with Norman Lear
Right, yeah.
to Steven Seagal. So I had to go over to his house to audition.
Okay.
And they said, Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. So I understand.
Yeah.
So he had a big mansion over in Bel Air.
Right.
So I get all ready. I have everything ready. And I knock on the door, and his houseboy comes up to me and says, yes, Mr. Seagal is not ready for you, but I will bring you into the study where you will be doing the scene with him.
Right.
So I go into the study. That's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I'm sitting there 2 hours. And then I get up, and I'm saying, like, is something going to happen here? Are we going to... He goes, Mr. Seagal is sleeping in today, but he'll be down shortly. I said, well, I have other things to do too. It's, I understand, but, he's the one who asked me to be here.
Right.
So I'm here. So I wait till maybe another 40 minutes. So now it's getting close to 1 o'clock. I'm getting up, and he walks in his like pajamas and his robe, and he goes like, been waiting a long time? And I go, yeah, actually, yes. He says, well, let me go upstairs. I'll get dressed and we'll get this show on the road.
Oh, God.
So he goes upstairs, and it's another 30 minutes. And then he comes down. So, when you do this part, I want you to be, emotional.
Yeah.
And I want you to be truthful and emotional. I go, well, Stephen, why don't we just read through it and see if there are any notes or anything you have. I'm already thinking this is going to be disastrous. So I read it and I ran out of that house, and I think like, oh my God. Yeah. And then my agent called and said, you got the part. I said, like, oh no. So Steven Seagal was tough. That was tough. It was just not professional, and it was a tough thing to do. But, you don't get to pick and choose, who you work with. Unfortunately, most of the people I work with in the show business is very hard.
Right.
It's very time consuming, and it doesn't have a regular schedule. So you have to be adaptable, and you have to be patient, and you have to work hard. And, if you don't do that, you usually just fall by the wayside along the way when you realize what it is. So, the Glimmer Man was not my favorite thing. That was not my favorite thing to do.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well.
But the one good thing of Glimmer Man, when we were doing looping on Glimmer Man, forget the good thing.
Okay.
The good thing was that as I was going in to do looping, there was another producer there, and he said, are you doing anything, next month? Would you like to come to New York and work with me? And I go, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I had another job coming in looping for Glimmer Man, so I was very happy to do that.
That was great. But like I said, Stephen, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on being, on the 9th anniversary show. I know it's a big honor for you. I hope Woodstockers gets picked up, because I'd love to see that.
I hope Woodstockers. Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. Corbin and team did a great job, and it's a ton. It's a great movie. It's a lot. Well, it's going to be a TV show.
Right.
It's a TV show, and we shot it like a movie, but it's going to be a pilot for a television show. And I just have my fingers crossed it gets picked up.
Yeah.
It'd be fun working with those people. They're all good. They're all so good.
Yeah, I hope it does. That'd be great. But like I said, thank you.
You bet.
And a special thanks to Stephen for joining me today. He's a really great guy. If you have a guest suggestion, hit me up on X, formerly Twitter, at @thepersonal19. Be sure to like the page Living My Youth on Facebook. Go to iTunes, check out all the past episodes we've had. We're almost at 400 now. You can rate and review the show. If you don't have iTunes, not a problem. Show's on SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, YouTube, basically where we can find a podcast. New episode will come out next week. Stay safe, everybody. See you then.